Hey guys, how's it going? I'm the Duke of Italy, your favorite lo-fi music YouTuber, and welcome to what might be the last filming session that I do in this particular location because I'm finally getting my PC. It's been a project I've been looking for a couple months now. It's supposed to be a graduation present. It's been taking forever, and we're gonna move to the old room that I used to film some stuff in, where I did both of the year-end list videos. Those masterpieces, in my opinion. Those I do believe those are the magnum opuses of this channel, even though it's like not originally what I meant to make. But today, to finish up this film location, even though I might do one more video here, in all honesty, or maybe a couple, depending on how fast things go. We are going to be, of course, finishing the Have a Nice Life chart, How to Have a Nice Life, where in the past we talked about all the Have a Nice Life albums and releases, and we talked about all their little side projects here. And today is basically Dan Barrett today. I don't think a single one of these projects is Tim Makuga except for one. And we're going to go all the way back to Death Consciousness. And it's given a direction of acoustic. And you're like, acoustic? What could that mean? Well, today we're talking about the second most important thing to most people of what Dan Barrett has done, Giles Corey. Now, Giles Corey is a one-man sort of folky, slowcore-esque project, yet it's still as depressing as ever, as Dan Barrett is known to have the grim song topics that you've all probably known by now. If you haven't, well, I mean, if there's any project to get you into it, this one might help a little, because as much as Death Consciousness is as crushing as possible, you won't have a song as soft as Grave Filled with Books, which is one of my favorite Giles Corey songs. But me talking about this album so casually is kind of understating its importance a little bit. It is an absolutely critical album, just for many things. I mean, it's Mucore. Pitchfork loves it. Everyone loves it. I love it. It is a little bit overrated, though. Some people say it's as good as Death Consciousness. To be completely honest, I think every Have a Nice Life project except for one is better than this. I think this is very good. I think it's fantastic, actually. Its level of greatness doesn't exactly reach the heights I think that Death Consciousness does, or the second album, or even the Time of Land EP, which those projects are just so conceptually sound, and they have such interesting textures here. And this album continues that charm of that low fidelity and just those crushing themes. You know, it's all over here, except you got a lot more personal loss. You get a lot more relationship focused stuff. It's a lot more of a self introspection. Death on a grand scale is not looked at here. It's more of death of a very personal scale, or like personal suffering here. Conceptually, it's very sound, and it's a great album for that. But it's definitely not always acoustic, but it is always stripped back. There's typically like what sounds like maybe a Telecaster in here, or sometimes acoustic guitar. It is a complex album overall, though, about reaching an hour long. You know, all these songs do have a totally different thing to say. Dan's vocals are always distinct and yearning. They're achingly sad here, and I think they have a lot more personality than on the normal Have a Nice Life projects. The Have a Nice Life projects, he feels, well, grand. All of those albums feel like it's the sky talking to you, but here it's clearly Dan. I'd say this album is actually even more conscious of death than Death Consciousness, which is funny because it's Death Consciousness. The first and second half of this album have a huge contrast, where the first half of this album is a bit more electronic, not directly electronic, but filled with effects and electric guitar and drums, and the second half of the album has more acoustic guitar, but it's unwavering. It's some really sad stuff. It's less of a dread-inducing album and more of just a sad album. But I can't deny how conceptually sound it is, how much the sound is very interesting. All the effects have a ton of charm to them, if not just sounding objectively good. Dan's songwriting is fantastic. I love the almost death knell feeling of the opening track, where he just calls out Giles Corey. Half these songs feel like a funeral march, but they're all super personal at the same time, and I think they're all really fantastic. I encourage you guys to check this out for yourself. I think this is a great album. And if you somehow want it more low fidelity, we are actually covering the final Have a Nice Life project I will cover on this channel, in terms of this series at least. But it's actually not only the first project, it's the very, very, very first project that Dan Barrett and Tim Makuga are ever credited on. This is Have a Nice Life versus You, the demo. Yeah, this isn't even an EP. This isn't even a promotional demo. It's basically like a demo they traded around physical copies of. But it's you could definitely tell some stuff that's gonna happen with them later, but it is so different. This is a almost purely acoustic guitar album, acoustic guitar and vocals. They both sing and play guitar in a sort of two-person folk setup. This is Have a Nice Life doing folk, not the twisted folk that Giles Corey does. It is folk. And there's a healthy dosage of emo here. The humor is too emo to ignore. Hearing Tim sing so much is actually kind of remarkable, but it's sick. I think he has a great voice in this album. EP, demo, whatever. There's some tracks like Invading Christian Shores that have a really tragic feeling behind them, even though the sound isn't so overwhelming. And you could tell on the little voice bits and the little spoken word sections that there is so much humor on this album, even though it is such a deeply depressing set of subject matter, which it is hard to tell. It is a very low fidelity, almost indiscernible production. It's certainly underdeveloped, but it is very, very earnest. It's very true. I'd say this is a good listening experience. And if you guys want a completionist thing, and this wasn't included on the chart, but I guess it is the only thing you could consider to be on the chart, there is a live recording of Have a Nice Life performing Have a Nice Life versus You material. Over 15 years ago at this point, I want to say. It is like pre-YouTube stuff, but it was end up being uploaded to YouTube. And I think they just do knife throwing contests, but it's still a very interesting video, and you see them early on, and actually the guitar playing is more clear. And if you want a more stripped down version of Giles Corey self-titled, you have the EP. This one's hard to pronounce. Hinterkaifeck, I believe. I don't know. It is the last thing Dan Barrett did until Sea of Worry, so you definitely get a gap in terms of his how active he was, which makes me feel like Giles Corey's not a project doing much right now. But it is definitely more stripped back and more lo-fi. It's actually colder feeling than Giles Corey, and it's short. It's only 13 minutes, so don't expect like a giant, really interesting listening experience. It's not like a Time of Land where you get everything you need, but like Time of Land, there is this heavy haze over everything here that works perfectly. And it is a super oppressive sound, and it is just fantastic atmosphere. In all honesty, for how long it is, I think it's great. And because this chart is absurdly completionist, we then cover Live, which is Giles Corey, Live in the Middle of Nowhere, which you get a really stripped back acoustic guitar and vocals only Giles Corey entire set list, and it's awesome. It is just a little bit lo-fi, but it doesn't sound too bad at all. And the version of Grave-Filled Books here is the best. That's one of my favorite Dan Barrett songs ever. And there are two excellent Have a Nice Life covers here, Deep Deep and the ever sought and maybe my favorite Dan Barrett song ever, Earth Mover. It's very cozy and sad. It's a fantastic listen. If you guys are like yearning for more Giles Corey content, then this is absolutely something to cover. And I think the Have a Nice Life covers are a good addition as well. And it sounds good. And it's funny hearing one of the guys from Planning from Burial in the background on the performance of Earth Mover. He plays the part, and you hear a guy go do 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 do, which is the keyboard part that plays in Earth Mover right before the heavy part, which people think is the funniest thing ever, and including me. I'm people. And then we get basically the Anno Domini for Giles Corey. This says Rest of Giles Corey with Giles Corey in the Spirit of Exile Collected Recordings. It's very similar to Anno Domini. It's a very diverse set of music here. My favorite parts are the low fidelity folk parts here, which that's just a genre I like. Honestly, the demo songs aren't as good as the demo songs that are now finished. Like the songs that never sought the light of day, those needed some work. The live recordings, especially with the second vocalist, are really cool. This one's really hard to rank. I'd probably say that it's good, but Cropsy shows up here, which is a Have a Nice Life song, and it sounds excellent. And then we get the addition of electronics for the other Dan Barrett project, Blackwing, with ... is Doomed. And this project is interesting because Dan Barrett has kind of split up his interests in his own solo projects into two avenues, where one, he wants every instrument to be played, which is Giles Corey, and one, he wants it all to be electronic, which is Blackwing. And there's a clear divergence of those two. And one thing that's really cool about Blackwing that I like a lot, the audio fidelity, the crispy Dan Barrett production that we all know and love and has been on every project he's been on so far except that one emo project. It not only works here, it works without a hitch. It is perfect. And holy crap, is this thing cold. I remember walking home from an art thing in the middle of May wearing jeans and a sweatshirt, and I was just thinking the world was so cold listening to this thing, and that was one of the hardest walks I've ever had in my life. It's really vibey with a serious gothic feel to the whole thing. It's very, very grand. And with Dan's production style, I mean, I mentioned it before, it's really nice. It's almost like he was meant to make this type of music. It is a little less depressing overall, but it's more like comfortable in its sadness. It's almost like relishing in it, which I know that's like not really what's happening here, but like it fits around it so much. It's not so jagged and abrasive. It's not like crying out for help. It's very much the opposite of that, where Have a Nice Life is sort of in between the two, as it is with the audio styles here of acoustic and electronic. Here, what you have is it's like not fighting against the sadness. It's very much just given up. Sometimes this album gets really noisy, and sometimes it's actually really clean. It's a really well-balanced album. It's really slick. It fits a perfect vibe. It's actually really, really nice. It's an album that'll just wrap you up, and I think it's great. And then we go into Colder with Black Wings, No Moon. And after just one song, it becomes the loneliest album on the whole chart. The synths are very consistent in texture, and they sound great. It kind of contributes to this sort of ambiance, sort of an ambient tone where it's so ultra tight and consistent and unwavering. The song Choir of Assholes is one of my favorite Dan Barrett songs ever. I think it's just phenomenal. And this one lyrically is much stronger. I think it's a bit of an improvement. You can kind of go either way on which one is better, but I think they're both phenomenal. This one's great as well. And then the chart, the last thing says Any Left, and hold your horses for Dan Barrett and the Cruisers with the Drive 2 soundtrack. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Dan Barrett Drives. And it's pretty groovy, little 8-bit synth chiptune thing here. It's very much demos. If you like Streets of Rage and you like Hotline Miami, this is sort of something in between. It's really for completionists, but a listen's not going to kill you. If you're driving, there's a few decent bangers, I guess, hence the title Drive 2 soundtrack. There is momentum to this whole thing. And there are some very rare vocal bits here, but when they show up, they feel a bit like M83, or at least modern M83. So, I think this is okay, for the title. I mean, shoot, it's great. And that's the chart, except the chart neglected one thing. And, this technically isn't Dan Barrett or Tim Makuga. This is a project known as Afterlives with a ticking clock I couldn't stop. And this is Dan Barrett's brother, Will Barrett. Yeah, I added an album to this chart. I felt that I had to. I felt kind of weird seeing all these demo recordings show up and not Dan Barrett's brother. And Dan Barrett has covered the song live, and I believe Will has been a live musician for Have a Nice Life in the past. So I felt like it was only natural. But what's interesting here is there's a really twee angle here that makes this album feel kind of alien. It's like, it feels like it's not meant to do any of this stuff. It feels like it's not fitting in with this depressing angle. It feels kind of more anguished and a little bit more manic. And it is utterly raw production. It is like so crispy. It's psychedelic, but it feels very quaint at the same time. Some songs like Ever the Optimist really evoke classic Have a Nice Life vibes with that same drum machine. And the distortion is definitely harsher than Have a Nice Life. This is like Have a Nice Life's, well, weird unknown brother, which it literally is. Now, it's not quite post-punk and it's not quite folk, but it is a fantastic blend of both things. I Am the Heroic is like an even less compressed Have a Nice Life track, if you could even fathom such a thing. The dynamics are insane and the raw bits are as crispy as ever. This is definitely something that'll need a few listens because it feels just so outsider and weird, and it feels very lonely and unforgiving in its production and songwriting as well. These songs have long lengths, really weird soundscapes. They really just don't give up. And after starting this chart, I want to mention one more thing. And after starting these videos, a very, very special upload happened. Hate56 uploaded their live recording of Have a Nice Life's live show, which I have watched most of, and in all honesty, I probably shouldn't be reviewing it, having not watched the entirety of it. I mostly just watched probably 70% of it, the songs off of Death Consciousness. But, wow. such a cool thing. It's the most high fidelity upload of Have a Nice Life to date, live or studio. I'm willing to bet there's more budget in Hate5six's camera setup than there is on the entirety of Death Consciousness's entire setup. And maybe not with a laptop back then. I'm sure if you subtracted the laptop, it would have been less. But I mean, I guess if you include Hate5six's laptop, then it's the same, or more for Hate5six rather. But what you get here is really yelled vocals from Tim McCouga. Someone in the comments said he should do a Gorguts cover because of his vocals. And you get just a fantastic, lush mix of Have a Nice Life in their easily best live recording to date. The sound is pretty good for Have a Nice Life. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the best sound mixing in the world, but it's solid. And it's a live show, you know, that you get some jokes here and there. You get some moments that they're pulling back a little bit from the performance to just let them tune their guitars. But if you've seen a live video of Have a Nice Life before this one came out, then you are going to really enjoy this one because there's no camera shaking, there's no distortion, there's no clipping, there's nothing obscuring you in any way. You just get to see an audience's real reaction to Have a Nice Life. You get to see the real performance on stage. All these really interesting band members with real talent here. And you get fantastic performances on everything. All the songs are done amazingly. Dan's vocals, I've heard some points where he's a little flat, but on this recording, he's surprisingly with it. For as manic he gets up there, as totally enveloped in the meanings of the songs and the performance themselves. It's a godsend that we got this video. It's literally one of the most important things we've got all year. I'm willing to say almost as important as any album released this year. Particularly from any popular artist or any artist nearly as popular as Have a Nice Life, is the Have a Nice Life live video. It's just too many good songs. I'm so glad it's here. But it's about time I wrap this thing up here. I got really nothing else to say except that Dan Barrett and Tim McCouga really know what they're doing. They make great music, and I hope to talk about it some more soon. That's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'd appreciate a like and subscribe down below. If my grandmother's watching this, I'll send you a song from this video so you can understand. And maybe just one, because most of this music is very depressing. And I don't even like it all the time. I love it when I listen to it, but I don't always want to listen to it. But I'd appreciate you guys liking, subscribing, following my social media down below, particularly entering my Discord page where we talk about music, really. Mostly just music. And hope to see you guys there. Hope you guys are doing well. Have a good day. Bye.